Okay, so I think now we have started the recording. So here we are at the next part of the SEA Green Coffee Intermediate, and we are at the processes. Let's start. So, the oldest process of all is the natural process. And the natural process is the one that everybody knows, that you put the sherry on the bed and drying it for at least 3 weeks, maximum 5 weeks. It can take up to 6 weeks depending where you are and how you drying your sherries. And you need to reach an optimal moisture content of 10 to 12% with the sherry. So means when you remove the sherry, you should be averagely around 11 to 14%, which is okay, or even 13 actually. Okay, even less is okay. So here we are. You have in your in the PDF you have access to all this paper, so you can learn a bit much more about the processes. Please read it well, because when more you read it, less chance you have to fail your exam. Okay, so the natural process consists in 6 things. First, you need to have a selective end picking. You can use also floating tank and the winners. So the selective end picking, the winnowing, but you can replace those two steps by the floating tank. You still will need selective hand picking at the end, because it give a better, cleaner coffee. You sort the coffee, dry it, and he rests in husk until he gets this content. Okay, then you can hull. So when you rest in husk, the drying resting in husk, I should put it in same bullet point, because the resting in husk is obviously when he's on the bed. Then after, you can left your coffee rest into not a container, in a drying room, in bags, and at a controlled temperature room, in order to keep the moisture constant for a little while. And this is in order to imprint, to really have all the sweetness, the sugar, the flavor of the sherry really well transfer to the seed. Therefore, they get a better cup. So some people leave them during 6 months in a husk, some 3 months. So it's really all up to you, depending on the quality of the cups you wish to achieve, or you will achieve. Okay.
Hello, and welcome to the second in the coffee processing videos we have done. And today we're going to be looking at natural, or sometimes called dry processed coffee. Cherries are picked from the trees and cleaned. They're cleaned so the producer can separate the unripe, overripe, and damaged cherries and remove dirt, soil, twigs, and leaves. This is often done by hand using a large sieve. Any unwanted cherries are picked out from the top of the sieve. The coffee cherries are spread out in the sun, either on large concrete or brick patios or on matting raised to waist height on trestles called Indian raised beds. As the cherries dry, they are raked or turned by hand to ensure even drying and prevent mildew. This can have a big effect on the final taste in the cup and stops an over-fermentation of flavours. It may take up to 4 weeks before the cherries are dried to the optimum moisture content, depending on the weather conditions. On larger plantations, machine drying is sometimes used to speed up the process after the coffee has been pre-dried in the sun for a few days, although this is rare. The drying operation is the most important stage of the process, since it affects the final quality of the green coffee. The coffee that has been over-dried will become brittle and produce too many broken beans during hulling. Broken beans are considered to be defective beans. Coffee that has not been dried sufficiently will be too moist and prone to rapid deterioration caused from attack of fungi or bacteria. The dried cherries are then sent to the mill. This is sometimes done on the farms, where hulling, sorting, grading and bagging can take place. All the outer layers of the dried cherry is removed in one step by the hulling machine. The dry method is used for about 90% of Arabica coffee produced in Brazil, and most of the coffee is produced in Ethiopia and Indonesia. Almost all Robustas are processed by this method. It is not practical in very rainy regions where the humidity of the atmosphere is too wet or where it rains frequently during the harvesting. And that's it, naturally processed coffee.
Okay, so things I need to add on this film is the only countries that produce only natural is Yemen, because obviously lack of water. So the next process, which has been created by the British, is the wash process, where you going to remove the sherry and after ferment, keep the seed in a fermentation tank for a minimum of 10 hours, and it can go up to 48 hours depending on what you're looking for. On the cup, it's all about the cup at the end of the day. So please do read all the documentation, all the PDF about this. And yes, so I put a bit much more that necessary, that needed. However, it's really good information. It is not the information for pro, which is longer, but if you want to go into a farm and start applying your knowledge, it will be very useful to have all this information with you. Okay, perfect. So the principle of the process is very simple. You pick, sort, pulp, ferment. So this is picking. You need you go in just to make sure that all your coffee is clean. Know that there's no green, no overripe. You're going to pulp it. And the pulping is in order to control the sugar onto the seed, so the fermentation do not completely go acidic, because if there's too much fruit is what may happen, and you can smell of vinegar. So yes, then after when you pulp, you remove the sherry out of the beans, you just have the beans, and you're going to put it in a fermentation tank. Then you're going to do what we call the soaking, okay? And the soaking is just after the fermentation, so it's a second, if you want, it's a second bath. That's very, people say yes, a second fermentation, but it's not seen as a fermentation, it's seen as a fermenting, then a soaking, which is actually a double fermentation. Then you go in to do washing, hence the name wash process, where you scrubbing the bean until there is no more pulp left onto the seed. Then you dry and rest in parchment for a couple of months until the bean just settle. Then you go in to your coffee. And you earn in your coffee, as soon it is ready for export. Okay. The Girin Basa, which is come from Indonesia and by the Dutch. So you do exactly like a wash process, but you remove the hull, the parchment, sorry, when the bean reach 35, an average of 35 moisture content, between 40 to 30% of moisture content. And the reason is really simple, is in order to dry faster and you can sell your coffee faster. So that was the answer that the Dutch, the solutions the answer to the speed of the process of the British that the Dutch found in order to beat them to the market, coffee market. So having their coffee, Dutch wanted to have their coffee before the British on the market. So this is what they did. Voila. So this coffee is done in Sumatra, mainly in Sumatra, where hence the name when people say Sumatra process. Sulawesi, Flores, Papua New Guinea, and they will use the name Girin Bassa. They all do this. So it's really common. You have also in Philippines there. But don't really quote me on this because sometimes I hear yes, sometimes I hear no. Okay. So the Girin Bassa, due to the fact that the coffee is whole and stay in the air, so the insect, not in the air, but drying like this in the air, so the insect will attack the seed, the bean. Therefore, in order to protect the bean, you can put them in a special conditioning room where you have to come completely covered with a combination and everything in order not to bring insect into the room, in the drying room, or well, you do like those ladies there, you sort your bean, and it's a coffee most sorted in the world. Sorry. Okay, it's the most sorted coffee in the world. Okay, let's check the film. So the film have no sound, do not worry.